There's this like deep inner urge to like, I got to get on my soul mission. I got to help people in this way. And sometimes,
Mhm.
your north node is that area of the place we're going to. We're learning in
Mhm.
that area. Our ego's like, no, it's not safe to go over there. It's brand new territory. And so generally it's the place we're most afraid to go, or we have the least amount of confidence.
Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality. If you are new here, my name is Kat, and I'm a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. And I'm so pleased to have joining us today Deanna King, who is an author, Soul Path Astrologer, and spiritual coach. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deanna.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Can you start off just by letting the audience know a little bit about you and your journey? How did you get to doing this kind of work?
Well, I probably was designed for it. Of course, I didn't start realizing it and stepping into it really, really passionately till about 2 years ago. My mom started out as a hobby astrologer, and she was also a businesswoman and an entrepreneur. But I never had to know astrology because she always knew it, and it never, I didn't, it was too intense, and I didn't want to learn about it because I always could count on her. But she passed years ago, and about 10 years ago, I had broken up with one of my partners and went on a sabbatical. And so during that 9-month period, I decided to delve into my own astrology chart so that I could understand what my karmic deal was with all these relationships. And I was using her books. And so for literally 9 months, I was pouring myself into the astrology, and it was kind of more like a remembering process. And as I began to understand the chart, I could really see that I had probably been an astrologer in the past, in a past life. So that was kind of fascinating. And it really came on suddenly, like I was completely overtaken, inspired, by spirit to keep studying. And so I added astrology to the work that I've already been doing, which is spiritual coaching, which is energy work. And what I do is I teach people how to use energy to manage their own energy body. If they're an empath, sometimes they don't know how to cleanse themselves of other people's energy, or they don't know how to protect themselves or call themselves back from all the healing work that they're doing. So my passion is to teach people how to manage their own energy body so that they can be more 100% and show up and do whatever their soul mission is here on the planet. And then last year I published a book thinking that would also be part of my career. However, books are a little bit hard to promote sometimes. And so it wasn't necessarily a part of my career, but it's an amazing book, and it's something that runs right along in the same vein as my teaching, which is about ceremony. It's called Bringing Ceremony Home. And it's basically using the sacred circle and the 4 directions and the elements, kind of like a Native American medicine wheel, but it's not based on that completely. It's just modeled after that and the ancient practices of using the sacred circle. So it's a process of using ceremony to connect with spirit and to practice invocation, which is kind of sincere prayer, very divine prayer, where you're invoking the spirit beings and the elements and maybe your animal spirit guides. It's written to be creative so that you can adjust it and morph it to your personal needs and your inclination, right? But it's a good starting point. It's a do-it-yourself manual. It's very easily laid out. And my goal, of course, is so that more people can be using ceremony just in their everyday life to work with spirit, maybe during a full moon, new moon, rite of passage time, anything that they find is very sacred and they want to get a little bit of co-creation involved with spirit.
Absolutely. Do you find that having something tangible, physical with the body to do that connects the energy work with the 3D is a powerful or helpful way to do that, like as opposed to simply meditating or being still or being present? Like, what do you think the energetic differences are between like performing a ritual, say, as opposed to just channeling or meditating?
Well, for me, I feel like the more senses you can get involved, because we're here to be in a body. We're already a spiritual being, but we came here specifically to be in a body, to experience a body and all the things that a body has in this environment. And there's a little bit more of a magnification that comes when you invoke all the senses. So when you're creating a ceremony and a ritual, you know, even drinking tea is a ritual, but you're smelling the aroma, you're feeling the cup, you're tasting the taste. And so if you're
Hmm.
building a ceremonial place, you're touching every little stone that you're putting in there, or picture, or flower petal, whatever the things are that you're putting into your circle. And you're again opening up the heart, that creative space in your heart, which is very much attuned to the inner child as well, because the inner child is just super creative and can go at things with awe and wonder, right? And just be like, go with the flow and be like, oh, let's try this stone here. No, I think it needs to go over there. And this color is really great there. And I'll use this tapestry. And, you know, and again, you're using your senses of touch and sight, and then you're invoking the feeling of joy, right? So
Yeah.
you're getting all of those involved. Now, some people, when they meditate, are also intentionally trying to invoke senses. Like, say, for example, if you were trying to go and spend some time on a different timeline. This is just an example. If you wanted to
Hmm.
experience what is it like on a timeline, you'll get more bang for your buck if you can actually smell the smells in that timeline, taste the tastes of eating food in that timeline, feel the fabrics in that timeline. Like, you literally get your imagination feeling it and sensing it, making it palpable. And again, that's because you're using all your senses to become alive from the body form, the earth plane, and that helps bring it, for me, I feel like it brings it down into the manifest, right? Rather than keeping
Yeah.
it in the etheric plane.
Yeah. Yeah, I think different practices for different types of things. And I like the I like that it almost feels like building a ritual. It's almost an exercise in intuition and in channeling that energy, like feeling where things should go and what things are really calling to you for this particular thing that you're doing. And it's almost like you pulling some of that down to earth, that energy, and using your intuition and your feelings and your senses to set up and arrange things as well. Like,
Right, right. I feel like too, it opens the divine feminine, that creative force that lives in the divine feminine, whether you're a masculine or a feminine person, but that creative force that likes to, you know, some people are really into the feng shui or the colors or
hmm.
the beauty that they're creating. There's a feeling with the beauty that you're creating. And sometimes it's honor and respect for this grand ritual. You know, it's like if you had a bed and breakfast and the Dalai Lama was going to come stay there, you would prepare that room really gracefully and respectfully, right? You would want
Hmm.
to imbue it with the most beautiful vibes. And so you're kind of sending out this same level of divinity to your ritual space and practice.
Yeah. Do you think it could be also like a balancing practice that awaken like utilizes more and awakens the divine masculine within you as well, just because it's a kinetic energy and it's a setting up of things, and rather than just like the receiving energy, the feminine receiving energy, it's kind of action oriented as well, doing something physically.
You're totally right on. It's action oriented. And I feel like the circle itself is the container. And in a sense, that might be part of the divine masculine, because the masculine is set up to protect and provide a space for the
Hmm.
creativity. So the fact that you're creating it in a circle, um, is sort of that masculine container that's providing that sacred space. And so anything that's not sacred and in the highest good for this practice isn't really allowed in. That's kind of the intention of a circle. Same as if people hold their hands together and gather in a circle. It's to
Hmm.
connect, right? And create a bond for a purpose, right?
I like that. Connect and protect. That's a good way of thinking about the circle, like creating connection and protection at the same time. Definitely, if you have links and stuff, I can put that in the description if people are interested in checking out the book. It sounds like it's really interesting. And I'm a big fan of holding space both physically and energetically, spiritually to perform rituals and stuff. I'm not particularly trained in any given practice, but I do really often feel called to like actually set things up and make little areas and connect in that way. So I love that that's a practice and a thing for you as well. We can link that up for people if they're interested for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And it's really super fun to invite your girlfriends and say if someone's getting a new job or buying a new house, like you can create a ceremony to bless that next step, right? And so you've got everybody putting their really good love and energy into that goal that's coming to fruition. So it's a
Yeah.
really nice way to celebrate and add
One of
nice.
the most frequent ones I get asked to do is a new home or moving into a new space, that sort of thing, to just sort of christen and clear out whatever old energy and bring in the new good vibes. Is one of the most common ones that I get asked.
Yeah, yeah.
Can, can you talk to me a little bit about the astrology? Because I'm also fascinated by astrology, and I admit I'm not super affluent with astrology. I know my own chart and I know some of the basics, but I have not made like an in-depth study of it.
Yeah. So my passion is really with what I call soul path astrology. And the
Hmm.
purpose, the reason I call it that is because I'm interested in helping people understand where they already have learned and mastered techniques and gifts in other lifetimes and where their soul actually wants to go this time. Because I feel like, especially if you're a starseed, you kind of feel like you're a person who came here for a purpose and you're supposed to be doing this purpose. We call it a soul mission. There's this like deep inner urge to like, I got to get on my soul mission. I got to help people in this way. And sometimes,
Hmm.
your north node is that area of the place we're going to. We're learning in that area. It's brand new. We're scared of it because we don't know anything about it. Our ego's like, no, it's not safe to go over there. It's brand new territory. And so generally it's the place we're most afraid to go or we have the least amount of confidence. But just by talking about it and looking what sign is it, what aspects is it having, what are the challenges, and then using your gifts from your past to guide you and support you on your way to that path. But it
Yeah.
gives you a GPS lineup where you're like, oh, I'm totally right on if I'm in this path, but maybe I shouldn't waste my time over here in this area. And I'm not always talking about career. Some people are here to be fabulous mothers. Some people
Hmm.
are here to share their light to the world as a hobby, right? They have a regular job, but maybe they talk to everybody in the grocery store, right? So it really just depends on what it says in your chart.
Hmm.
And of course, the chart has different themes, areas, we call them houses that talk about, is this your money house or is this your relationship house? Is this your home house? Is this your socializing house? So it's kind of nice to know where your soul is really wanting to aim all of its attention and direction to get experience. And ultimately, kind of what happens is if you're not aiming in that direction, you'll never be fulfilled in what you're doing. And how many people do you know are like, God, I just kind of hate my job or I hate what I'm doing. My life isn't full of passion. My life isn't exciting. I don't feel like I'm making a difference, right? Part of that is because they're not really moving into that place that's kind of scary that they really should be going.
Yeah, and I think that's a really helpful and useful tool, like a soul path astrological reading. Because I find a lot of times, and I've had it with myself, right? And I think a lot of other people go through it too, is as you start to get onto the spiritual journey and you may be doing meditations, rituals, channeling, and I think sometimes you can get information maybe from past lives or past, your Akashic records, and some of that it can be confusing or throw some too many different options on the path, because sometimes we also feel very connected to something we did in a previous life or something that comes up in, say, an Akashic reading or any of that. And it may not necessarily be the direction we're intended to go in this life, but it
Right.
can, it can feel like a very strong connection for some people and kind of feel that pull to want to go in a direction that feels like it's connected to us, even if that connection is a past connection.
Sure.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
For example, I'll just use myself. My North Node is in Gemini,
Hmm.
which is communication, and it's in the 10th house. So it's supposed to be my career. Now, that means my South Node is opposite in the 4th house, which is home. So in past lives, I did a lot of things at the home, or I was, stayed in a small community. And now I'm supposed to move out and really talk openly with people. And like I said, I could tell that I had done some astrology in a past life. I didn't see it in my North Node, but I saw it in some other areas. I mean, in my
Hmm.
South Node. And so It's not that I'm supposed to be an astrologer again in this life. It's that I'm supposed to do it out in the global. I also have Jupiter in the 10th house. So that's more of a global expansion, which is the online internet marketing, right? So it's like
Right.
doing this kind of communication with my astrology and my spiritual teaching. Whereas before, I think I did it within just the community, maybe even just the village, because it was back in the home area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good way to look at it is, things that we have already experienced or built a soul experience on, basically, can be not necessarily something to avoid, but a tool to help move forward
Yes.
into what so a passion or a tendency towards astrology can actually be what helps support you moving into whatever your north node is,
Right, right.
rather than necessarily something that you don't need to worry about or ignore. It can actually be a tool of propulsion forward. So
Right.
yeah, I like the thought process of that
Yeah.
and kind of accumulates everything together. So how about collective astrology? Can you talk to me a little bit about, like,
Hmm.
outside of the individual astrology, how astrology impacts us as a whole, the collective?
So right now, the biggest theme I think that's on everybody's mind is that Pluto is moving back into Aquarius, and it will stay in Aquarius for 20 years. And Pluto is a collective planet. It affects the collective, meaning that it's asking us to up level. It's always asking us to let go of what's not serving us and move into, be reborn into what is serving us. It's not a very kind and gentle planet when it teaches us lessons. It's more of that death and rebirth, like the phoenix
Yeah.
being burned completely and then being reborn, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but it's the deep dives into those places of inner truth, and it really wants us to get to the core, to the origination point, and to break down and then build brand new. So in Aquarius, and beautiful thing about Aquarius is it is a collective sign. So there's going to be a huge amount of expansion happening in the next 20 years. Instead of going from Capricorn, which is where I'm sorry, where Pluto's been,
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn is more the hierarchy, right? It's the hierarchy that we see in government, where they're the top dog. They tell the little people what to do. We follow the rules. Um, it's an inequality based on one leader or many, a small percentage of leaders, just like even in a church, there's like a small percentage of
Yeah.
leaders and then there's the congregation. Whereas Aquarius is really focused on every single individual has a gift and a talent that accentuates the whole. So it's recognizing the individual gifts because the whole will not be the whole without the individuals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that kind of feeling. And so it'll be really an interesting restructure collectively, maybe on a global scale, obviously, we don't really know how it's going to come down, but I think there'll be a redesigning of how governments are done. They'll either be within small communities, right, where it's easier to manage because each community will handle their own stuff. There'll be a little bit more equality share, fair distribution of money, right? Because that's been one thing that's caused a lot of hierarchy and divisiveness is the unequal exchange of money.
Yeah. Can we talk about hierarchical thought processes for a second? Because this
Sure.
was something that I got in a channeling like some months ago, like maybe 6 months ago, that the vertical morality structure or hierarchy is really like a human construct, just a way to like figure out how to label and place yourself. If for a long, long time it's God and then it's the king and then it's the nobility and everybody falls somewhere in there. So it kind of has us like, if these things are above us, then there must be all these other things below us. And it's like just a way to figure out where you stand, but it's also like the heart of many of the issues and problems that we've seen with inequality is people's desire to move up that scale, to have more beneath them than, you know what I mean, than above them.
Right, right.
It's a whole socialization, like it's almost, generate like a big generational curse, like humanity's generational curse, this hierarchical thought process was
Right.
sort of what I was getting. But like, how do we shift that. Like what I saw was more like a horizontal plane where it's literally, what matters is relationships between people on equal footing, not some sort of ordering process.
Right. And I really feel like part of what's going to happen with Pluto and Aquarius is our egos are going to be getting different downloads. So, for example, egos originally were designed to protect us from danger, from dying,
Hmm.
right? They
Yeah.
they protect us in survival mode. And it's just so happens that now in modern times, like our ego doesn't have to save us from the tigers anymore. So it's falsely been seeing if I'm not the top dog in my tribe, they might kick me out and then I'm going to die, right? Because that could happen at one time in our culture. And so what I find is that the ego's going to have to get an upgrade, just like a computer gets rebooted and you have to update things, right? So
Hmm.
what we're being called to do is to work more with our heart and let the heart lead and then use the mind and maybe the ego as a secondary or a third accentuation, right? So there's really this transition into the heart space, which the heart doesn't know hierarchy. The heart is the all. It's honoring and respecting the all and including the all. And we're not experienced in operating from our heart. We can practice it here and there, but we don't walk around 24/7 in that space because we're still learning how to do that. And
Yeah.
it does take diligence and it does take practice. It also is just going to happen automatically because all the celestial events are supporting us. It happens more quickly and more easily if you're in alignment with it and you're consciously moving with it than if you're just not paying attention nilly-willy and letting whatever happen, right?
Yeah.
However, I do believe that what you're talking about, that hierarchy, again, is very much ego-based. And so as soon as
Hmm.
we dissolve the way the ego has been operating and put it back in a different place, or maybe give it a new role is really, I'm not quite sure how it's going to transcend, but once the heart starts leading, we won't have to have the hierarchy. We won't feel like we're in danger unless we're at the top. Do you see what I'm saying? There won't be this competition or need to be
Yeah.
above anyone else. Most of that, I think, has been based on survival skills and not feeling safe.
Yeah.
You know?
And fear has been such a powerful motivator that for like I think most of human history, it's been used as a propaganda tool. Like we've been, or society has been intentionally instilling fear in order to motivate people. And so it's almost kind of been reinforced. Like the initial need for it has translated and been reinforced in the modern era. Like you said, we're not being attacked by tigers anymore. Um, but almost being attacked by information of things we should be afraid of in order to motivate people in one direction or another. So it's been reinforced socially as well, I think.
Yeah. And I really do believe it's going to have to come from within.
Hmm.
For way too long, people have been like sheep. We just let someone else kind of make the rules and tell us what to
Yeah.
do. And we're very happy to respond because ultimately we haven't wanted to be responsible for everything. But now's the time, like you really just need to take responsibility for yourself, choose your own integrity, act and live the way that you desire, the way that you feel is right morally. And sure, you might lose some friends, you might create some distance with family. I don't know what's going to happen. But at some point, it's like if enough people just say we need to do it this way, there's way more of us, the collective people below government,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
than there is in government, right? So I think it's a fallacy that we don't have that we're powerless. It's totally not true.
Yeah.
We've fallen under that hypnotism that we have no power, and now's the time to just believe in ourselves, right? Up level your self worth in every way you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's supportive of the entire idea, right? Like if you do take responsibility for yourself, and it also kind of removes you automatically from that hierarchical thought process, because if you're living from a place within, it's sort of, it reinforces your validity without having to place yourself in some sort of societal structure. Internal strength and validity, it does help pull that thought process
Yeah,
down.
yeah, and I think so you said you meditate. Do you practice mindfulness? Like just during your day, do you kind of give yourself kudos? Oh, I was super nice to that person today. and I noticed how I behaved differently, or I held my tongue, or you know what I mean? You just kind of become your own self-observer and notice how maybe your behavior's a little bit more mindful. And
Yeah, absolutely, because it starts to become sort of undeniable after a while. You're like, wow, I my thoughts and my feelings have changed so completely that things just flow, and it feels much better and much more stable, than it ever did when I was worried about what other people think. Because it becomes like removing yourself from that hierarchical thought process, giving yourself the space to just be and be valid in your thought processes, regardless of what other people are saying, actually attracts better collaborations, co-creations, conversations, and it really does. It starts to be a snowball effect of energy where it's even outside of mindfulness, it almost becomes invasive. It's undeniable the difference that it makes. You know what I mean?
right, right. So one extra little punch that you can do is when you're in that bigger heart space, and you can tell, you can just feel it, it feels good. You're either
Hmm.
receiving or you're giving in that space. Is you just intentionally say, I'm going to send this to the collective so that they get a sense of what this feels like to live in this energy. And what I do is I kind of visualize like the spider web spreading out from my heart and is connected to every single other being's heart on the earth. And I just kind of send that energy along. Here's a little tendril of like, this is how I just experienced in my life, and it's beautiful. This is how you can do it too. And subconsciously they pick it up, right? Through osmosis, like, 'cause we're all connected. And
Yeah.
and on an equal level, if there's something you're kind of struggling with, you can simply put it out on the web. Please, anybody who's gone through this, send me how you did it, and just ask to receive that. You can get it in a dream. You can get it while you're meditating. You can just get it, over the next 2 weeks, however you feel like you need to get it. But making those kinds of intentions, again, is going to help the collective. So you had asked that question. And it's about being mindful and sharing energetically. And when you think about it, Aquarius is an air sign. It's the two wavy lines, which are frequency lines,
Hmm.
right? So that's vibration, that's energy moving. And there's no time and space in the etheric world. So I can send energy to anybody on the globe at any time by just my
Yeah.
intention, right?
That's an interesting question. I'm an Aquarius rising. But I know people have Aquarius in all kinds of placements in their charts. Do you feel like this shift of Pluto is going to have an a bigger effect or a different effect on people who have Aquarius placements in different places in their charts?
You bet, you bet. So your rising sign is the personality you show to the world.
Hmm.
Uh, And so to me, the fact that you have Aquarius and you're doing a podcast like this, it's like you're going to speak about those futuristic themes, because
Hmm.
that's part of Aquarius, futuristic inventions, ideas, bringing new thought into the process, um, things out of the blue and sudden that aren't like everyday norm, right? That's
Hmm.
Aquarius. And you're doing that. People probably see you as a forward thinker, as a someone who is very individual. You don't follow the crowd, right? You just do your thing. That's another Aquarius personality trait, is that it's very much on its individuality. It respects individuality over being a sheep, and following the rest of the crowd.
Yeah.
They dress their own way, they look their own way, they speak their own way. They're not heavily influenced by the norm, right? The pressure from societal norms. Now, I have Aquarius in my sixth house, which is your house of everyday activities. And
Hmm.
sometimes that's your work and your employees, because you deal with them every day.
Hmm.
So for you, you might be getting a little bit of an upgrade on either asked to accentuate what you're doing with your personality, like make it bigger, make it more pronounced.
Hmm.
I'm going to be asked to step more into that, paying attention to every day. That might be my health, to keep me able to do my online work. It might be, doing more podcasts on a daily basis, or working, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I might even need to up my meditation level on a daily basis to keep me in that vibe that will accentuate what I'm doing in life. So that's the area where I'm going to be feeling it. Um,
Absolutely. And that all of that information is so interesting and and enriching and helps, you know, explain so much for people of what maybe they're already feeling. I mean, because we're all intuitives, but more and more people are starting to light up. Like the whole spiritual movement has really seen a proliferation, and I don't
Yes.
think that's a coincidence. I don't think anything is a coincidence personally, but utilizing and having that information can be really helpful, especially with so many people coming online to help sort out some of the information. And
Yeah.
you do have a website where you do charts and Soul Path astrology for people, correct?
I do Soul Path Astrology, and I mostly am excited to work with people long term. And I
Mm-hmm.
use astrology to guide us as we're working long term. But my goal is because, you know, astrology sometimes it's a big science, right? And it's a lot to
Yeah.
digest when you get an
Yeah.
astrology reading. So it's like you get it once a year or whatever, you know, once every 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to process and digest and how do I work with all that. But I like to work with people regularly to help them, you know, okay, I've got this going on this month. This is my challenge this month. And then I just go in and teach them energy work, and we undo whatever that programming or conditioning or belief or ancestral thing is that says I can't do this because of XYZ, right? And it might
Yeah.
even be a past life wound. So we just really go in there, look at the energy, move it around, bring out your inner magician, play with it, totally make it wonderful and beautiful and juju, you know, like big, beautiful, whatever. And then, you know, see how your life changes. It's just like when you're actively mindful and your heart is really big, you're seeing manifestation right in your life. People are behaving differently with you, things are flowing,
Yeah.
you're getting opportunities, invitations, you know, all kinds of things happen when you're in that flow. We call that being
Yeah.
in flow, right? But sometimes we have all those programs and things in the background that are just operating and we don't even know they're there. We're like, I don't know what's going on. I've been
Yeah.
working on this for years. It's really fascinating,
No,
things like that.
absolutely. And do you want to tell people the name of the website and stuff really fast? Shout that out so people know where to find
Yeah,
you.
my website is called 5D, like fifth dimension, 5dpath.fun. And fun is actually instead of .com, it's .fun because you can do that now. In case anybody didn't know, you can name it anything you want. And I do believe in the power of words, and so I named it that on purpose. I'm really also focused on bringing fun into the spiritual process. It's had a lot of seriousness in it with religion. Um, and I just think, again, that inner child wants to play, and they are deeply spiritual. They're so close to spirit, right? So bringing fun and the inner child into our spiritual work, I just feel like is maybe that's where we're going to. I don't know that
Yeah.
it says that with Aquarius, but the opposite sign of Aquarius is Leo, who rules children. So I think we'll probably be bringing that into balance there. And again, so it's 5dpath.fun, and you can find astrology on my website. I have a blog, I have my book on there, and my coaching, which is called 5D Guidance, is also listed.
Awesome. And that's perfect. I couldn't agree more. I think we've been clearing up stuff. So there's been the spirituality has been kind of focused on the more dark night of the soul thing as we've all kind of been clearing stuff out, but it's definitely time to focus on some of the fun. That sounds amazing. I'm going to go check it out. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Deanna, for being here. I really appreciate you and the work that you do, putting out excellent energy to the collective and helping to share that out for everybody. Appreciate it
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Yeah, I'm
Thank
glad.
you guys. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm glad that you're doing your podcast. People like me, we need people like you. And again, it's a win-win. Like that's the collective energy that's coming up is we're supporting each other completely.
Absolutely. We all need each other and we all need a platform and a way to get this information out there and it's unfolding beautifully, I think,
Mhm.
especially with the internet as a tool to help facilitate for all of us. So it's a very exciting time. Um,
Amen.
and thank all of you guys so much for being here. Drop us a comment, let us know what you think about it, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Definitely check out Deanna's links in the description, and we will see you guys next time on spirituality.